Money is one of the biggest problems I had in getting into smartphone filmmaking in terms of learning about the craft. I didn't have the money to go to university, to do online courses, anything like that, so I spent a lot of time at home wondering, without any money, what the hell I'm going to do to learn about this. So I had to teach myself, which is where you come in. Now today I'm going to show you how to turn your film from this, which is my first short film Blue, into this, which is my latest short film, which is doing well on the festival circuit, Anxiety Train. And I'm going to do that by reviewing your short films. So it's basically a free film class for you, and it's going to be incredibly detailed. So it's going to help you step up your filmmaking from here, way off the scale. So today I am reviewing Simon's short film called Pencil.
Okay, lovely. We're shooting now, please. Clear the sets. Red light and bell.
Hi, it's me. Morning, didn't see you there.
Yeah, I'll see you there. No problem.
I'm in awe of the faith that you have in us. You're like that safety net that I never thought I would have. Not to make mistakes, but just to get deep into work and life and have someone there with me. I don't know if I can start a family in good conscience. I'd let you down. I could just sense it. We've not been wrapped long, and I'm so into my head again. I know we said we should go for it, but
I love you very much. We're gonna be great parents. Think about it, rationalize it, and get it right in your head, because we're gonna do this.
is it really that easy for you? I promised myself that I'd make this happen, and yet I just feel a bit deflated now, like I've let us both down. I thought things would be different, you know, but better pay, better jobs, just more frequent, you know.
You have to work that out for yourself, son. But I mean, we're on the same page. I'm ready, and I think you are too. You just need some reassurance that things don't have to be perfect, you know? Come on, let's be parents.
I want to try what I can get better. I do want to provide for my family, but our relationship.
Now, the first thing that I enjoyed about this film was the opening, actually. You got this shot of the main actor walking towards the car, who is Simon, who's made this film, and you got the voiceover of someone basically getting ready for a take, so camera rolling, stand by, all that kind of stuff. So already it feels like a film that's quite unusual. You don't usually see this at the beginning or an intro of a film, so I quite like that you've gone for something that isn't stereotype and it catches your eye straight away. I also think the fact that you've described what pencil is before the film really gets going is a good thing as well, because as an actor I know what pencil and being penciled means, but people who aren't an actor themselves won't know, so this film wouldn't make much sense to them really unless they knew that, so it's good that you've put that in there as well at the beginning. I like the juxtaposition between yourself and the actress who's walking around the bed, who's your wife. You can see she's already ready to go to work and you're kind of in your pyjamas still in bed looking a bit kind of sorry for yourself and a bit kind of lost really. I like that kind of mix and contrast. I think that's really good, because if you've got characters who think the same way all the way through a film, it's not really going to give you any conflict, which is what you want. You want that conflict. I enjoyed the mask work in this as well, so the scene where you're in like the studio being filmed in the mask where it looks a bit distorted as well, it kind of creates that kind of tangled mind that you're feeling with at the moment, and how you're kind of getting lost and you're not sure where life is going. The way it kind of gets distorted, it really infuses that into the story as well, which is really clever. Also, the acting is very good throughout. I always can see how you're feeling. I'm never kind of confused about how you're feeling, which is really good, especially as a lead character. You have to be very clear and specific on that. Otherwise, people are going to get lost and not really care about that character. I think the moment when you're in the studio and you've got that mask in your hand and you hear the cut from the director, it's a really nice moment. It feels a bit more like Birdman, the one kind of shot where they go from a studio all the way through the bars and then all the streets and that kind of stuff. It has that kind of vibe with this shot when you're walking out of the studio down the corridor. I thought that was really well worked, and to have that kind of private, quiet moment with yourself in the kind of that isolation of the studio worked really well to kind of enhance how you're feeling. So story-wise, that works really, really well, that shot. I think this shot in the snow works really well too. The look out just into the kind of forest, it's like that, you can't see the woods for the trees kind of vibe. And I think it just looks really nice. The cinematography of it looks really good. Having one man in a sort of dark, close, almost like a shadow in the white snow works really well. Again, working with that kind of contrast, it just shows his isolation and his loneliness, and it really is a good bit of storytelling too. Having watched this film about 10 to 15 times, I have realised now that she's wearing the ring, you're wearing a wedding ring as well. So I think that's a really nice subtle touch to add to a film. You know, it adds tension, it adds stakes, it makes everything feel like there's a bit of a time pressure situation, which gives it more conflict. Anything you can do to add conflict to your film is going to make it way more interesting. If someone's kind of just cruising through a storyline where not much is happening and not much is changing in their life, it's not that interesting.
Need some reassurance that things don't have to be perfect, you know.
And I think that's the line that everyone can kind of relate to, because we all have that problem of like, oh, we want to do this, or we want to ask that person out, or we want to go for that job, but we'll wait till the perfect time. And there's never a perfect time in life for anything. Sometimes you just have to go for something. And I think that's a really nice line to have in the film. And it's one of those lines where if you said, what's this film about? That is kind of a sentence that says it all. So looking at the beginning here, there's this shot of you at the car. Now, it's a nice shot. It's not a bad shot at all. But I think in terms of storytelling, if you'd pulled that camera out to make yourself look much smaller, and even the car smaller as well, it will make you look more insignificant. So instead of you walking from behind the car, you could have you walking from a bit of a distance. Even if it means changing the location slightly, you could have you walking from a distance towards the car. And because it's further away, you're going to look smaller and more insignificant, which will already in the first shot tell us a little bit about you. I would definitely have gone to somewhere like freesound.org, get yourself some ambient sound, or even just record ambient sound in this location and then put it over the voiceover that's there. So that way it creates a bit more of a loneliness feel. So if when you're putting in the stuff in the car, you can hear a bit of wind, that kind of stuff, it just gives a bit more of an atmosphere. It brings the scene more to life rather than kind of just a dead sound behind the voiceover. Also, maybe a bit of Foley sound. You could just put the phone near stuff in the car. Now, I said it was a really good idea to have pencil on pencil with the description so the audience can understand what this film is about more. But I actually think there's a smarter way and more creative way to tell the audience this. So, for example, if you had an email from your agent, for example, which you could easily kind of just mock up, put that on your laptop screen. You could even just screen record it so that that goes onto your film, or you can just record it over the shot from your shoulder and then kind of zoom into the words perhaps. You can close the laptop, and then behind the laptop, you've then got the description maybe on the wall, something like that. So it's just a little bit of creativity there that could just add a bit more of a dynamic feel and interest for the audience. Now, you said to me that you shot this on your Android phone with a native camera app, and that kind of tells in terms of the exposure fluctuating in this next scene where you're on the bed and your wife opens the curtains. The exposure kind of goes crazy. So it's always, always, always beneficial to make sure that you use a professional smartphone filmmaking app, because it will just give you that much more control over your exposure, and it's not going to fluctuate from light to dark anywhere near as bad when the curtains open and things like that. It just gives you more control and it'll look more professional. I don't know if it's her walking or if it's the cameraman or what it was, but the camera kind of bounces and not in a purposeful way. So if your issue was that the actress is walking around a bit heavy-footed perhaps, then you could ask her to take the shoes off, because we're not seeing her feet. Take the shoes off, walk slower and softly around the bed, or even just take one step out of shot so you didn't have to walk around the bed at all, and then add the footsteps afterwards in post-production. If it was the cameraman that kind of caused that bounce, then that's quite an easy fix as well. If you said you were using a gimbal, if you just have it handheld with a gimbal, just hold it still, just kind of action, be calm, holding that gimbal, and you'll get a really nice steady shot. So it's just little things like that that can add a lot of professionalism to a film. Then there's a snippet of you in the skull mask out in the woods. I think it made sense when you're in a studio, but when you're out in the woods, it kind of gave me the question of why are you out in the woods dressed with a mask on? There was no kind of camera people, there was no voiceovers of people saying action, that kind of stuff. So it just seemed a bit odd that a person would go out in the woods with a skull mask. If you're going to do that, you need to make it really obvious why that's happening. Is it just your imagination imagining that? Is it you actually physically going to the woods to put that mask on? I know you're getting in the car at the beginning, but I thought that was to go to the studio to record, so that when I see you in the woods on your own, it kind of got a bit confusing. So be really specific with your choices and make sure if you're going to go for something like the mask wearing, that it's very clear why it's being worn and what the storytelling purpose of it is. That was one of the biggest questions I had, I think, watching this film. Then there's a shot of your wife walking through the house on the phone, probably doing a business call, I imagine. And then you say something when she walks past, which is,
Morning, didn't see you there.
it just seems a little bit of a weird thing to say to your wife in a house. I think, oops, sorry is perfectly fine if you're going to almost bump into her, but I didn't see you there, just, I don't know, it felt a bit jarring because you know that the person's in the house. Does that make sense? A lot of this was improvised, so maybe that was a line that was improvised, I'm not sure. I generally would always script a film just because this kind of thing can happen. You might say a line that in the moment seems fine, but when you look back at it, it doesn't necessarily make 100% sense. I think when you're looking through the cupboards here, you can really have a nice moment where the camera's inside the cupboard. You can even put a small light behind it to light your face up slightly so that you get a bit more of a on your own privacy kind of moment looking through it, and you can see the actor's face and the feelings that are there head on rather than looking at it from side on, because your head isn't necessarily always in frame in this. So it'd be nice to get a shot in that cupboard of you looking in a bit kind of hopeless really and stressed. I think that would be a really nice touch to add to your film. And even if you don't use that shot, if you film it, at least you've got the option. It's always worth filming different shots of something if you think it could be helpful, even if you don't use it in the end, because you might get a bit of a golden nugget take from a shot that you just created on the spot. And I think when you're talking about the adoration you have for your wife's faith in you and how things can work out, I think rather than having you lying in bed and looking at that empty space, because that's a little bit cliched, you could have you either on a train working on a script, maybe you're at a park and you see a pram going past, that kind of thing, a little bit of imagery there where you're having that longing for something, but you feel scared to have it because you don't think you've got the financial backing out and about, rather than just in the bed. So avoid those kind of cliches when you're filmmaking and think about how you can do something differently to what's been done before. Now also, whilst you don't have to stick necessarily to one type of transition or glitch motion effect in a film, I think it's better to stick to one or two, because you have sort of fade in, fade out transitions, you have complete blackout transitions, and whilst you're standing out the snow, there's this kind of computer glitch that kind of flickers on for a moment. I think if you maybe create more of a theme by choosing one of those things, give it a bit more of a theme throughout the whole film. That way the audience will get it all the time. Because there's a few times where I was wondering why it's going kind of to blackout, then into something else, blackout, then something else, then transitioning with a fade in to fade out. Then you've got this glitch. It just feels a little bit confused. I think find something that's a bit more specific that you can stick with for the whole film, and that way the audience will follow that film a bit clearer as well. Instead of having lots of voiceovers and then audio during the film that kind of fades in and out, that's harder to hear, what I personally would do is find ways to get that audio in written form within the story. So there's a moment where you're looking at the phone and it's your wife's words echoing in your head. Now, unless you're clearly having it echo in your head for a reason,
You have to work that out for yourself, son.
what I would probably do is just show the message on the phone that she's written you. So if it's about, we can do this, I believe you, that kind of stuff, it will be a bit more impactful if we see that in the message and you holding it, and maybe your reaction to seeing that message as well. Then as we approach towards the end of the film, there's this really nice shot where you're looking over like the snowy mountains and this lake. But I think there's potential for this shot to be much, much more impactful. So what you could do is, again, similar with the car shot at the beginning, start with a more establishing shot of that location, because it's a really beautiful location and you could really make a lot of that. Again, give it a bit more of a high budget feel, and it could really add a lot more to the storytelling, the budget feel of this. I know there wasn't a mic, so you couldn't do a lot of, in terms of audio, but there are ways to kind of vary it up with the shots, over the shoulder shots, those kind of things really add a lot to a scene. Now this leads into what, by your own admission, is audio that wasn't quite where you wanted it to be. So this duologue scene as you're walking along sort of the coastline of the lake.
I want a child with me and I do want to provide for my family, but our relationship.
It's an extremely difficult thing to pull off, having no sort of audio really, and trying to do a dialogue scene between two people. So the only way really to get around that is similar to what you did with that bench scene, where there's a voiceover to go over the top of that. I would probably do that with this as well. You could have a shot of you walking at a distance, maybe getting some closer up shots of some audio if it works well. Definitely get an external mic. It will make your life so much easier. That's why I made my film anxiety train. I had one external mic and then I kind of did different takes where I switched the mic from actor to actor. So that way I was still able to get some good dialogue to mix in together in post-production, even though I only had one, essentially what was a lav mic. This works in a wider. This is how the first original shot should have been done, I think, and then punch in a bit closer to when you're getting into the car. But I just wonder whether this scene would have worked a little bit better if you'd both got into this car on the same day you had that conversation just a moment ago, and then you have this moment that she doesn't see where you're kind of having doubts again. I think that'd be a nice little twist at the end of the film. Seeing you get into this car on your own, it confused me at first, so I'd be very interested to see people who are watching this video, what they felt in the comments down below. So in your next film, look at the cinematography and how that tells the story and how you can use the camera work, how you can be more specific in your choices in terms of getting that theme across to the audience. The acting was very, very good, so kudos on that. I think the story is very original as well, about an actor who's struggling with the thoughts of having a family, and financially what that means as well when you're an actor is pretty stressful. So I think the story itself is very original. You've made a lot of choices that aren't sort of cliche and stereotype. Eliminate one or two of the ones that are, and you've got yourself a really good film. If you want to see my latest film and see how much I've improved from my first, then check out Anxiety Train, which is right here, right now. It's doing well on the festival circuit run. See you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.